Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Virtual Church on Monday, 6th of July. We're on the second episode of our series about Peter. So we're going to follow him through the ups and downs of his life and try and see what that has to say about us as we also seek to follow Jesus through life's ups and downs. This is one of the most famous incidents of Peter's discipleship. I'm in Matthew chapter 14, starting at verse 22. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said. They cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," said Jesus. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So we're back in Simon Peter's world here, the world of boats, of being a fisherman of the Lake of Galilee, where he'd spent all his life really on the shore and all his working life fishing its waters and aware of the unpredictable winds that can come up over the mountains that surround it and stir up the most terrible storms. This is round about the fourth watch of the night, it says here. Well, the night was divided into 6 watches, so we're talking about the shift after midnight for this to happen. And they are completely spooked when Jesus, who has clearly set all this up, I think, suddenly appears to them walking on the water. I think he set it up because it says earlier that Jesus made the disciples go into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. Well, it must have crossed their minds to think, when we're over on the other side, how's Jesus going to join us? But that was Jesus. You never quite knew what he was going to do next, and he would often do things that seemed strange, but actually that he was able to resolve in the most surprising ways. But little did they suspect this. In the middle of the night, they're tired. It's very hard work rowing against those storms when they blow up. I had a friend who was in a canoe and was caught in a storm like that suddenly appeared and blew her straight over to the other side of the lake, completely helplessly. And she was a believer, our friend Varpo, and she was pretty sure she was going to drown. But God just gave her peace and told her to let the wind take her. It just blew her to the other side, and she was fine. Take courage, don't be afraid. Those words that Jesus continually says to us all the time. Let him say that to you in your situation. Let him say, take courage, don't be afraid. And then Peter says this most remarkable thing. "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." Isn't that Peter all over? He just wants to be where Jesus is. If Jesus is doing something, he wants to be a part of it because of the love he bears his master and the desire he has to share in Jesus' exploits so that he can learn all he can. So he wants to be there and find out what's going on. And it's because Jesus says, come, that he's able to take these steps of faith. Nobody's saying that we should set out to try and prove our faith by walking on the River Thames when the next storm is blowing. I would recommend you don't do that unless Jesus tells you very clearly that he wants you to do it. It's because Jesus says, come, that Peter responds in faith. He doesn't set out in foolish hardihood to walk on the water. If Jesus is doing it, so can I. Or I ought to have enough faith to do this. He does it because his master says, come. And, well, it's something, isn't it? When you hear the voice of someone you love, someone you trust, telling you to do something, you react differently to the way you would react, to what you would do if it's somebody you didn't know at all. Peter has learned to trust the voice of Jesus. And that's the heart of faith right there. It may only be mustard seed faith, as we read about elsewhere in the Bible. But the point of mustard seed faith is you put it in Jesus' hands and it will grow. And that's what Peter's doing here. He's looking to Jesus. He's asking Jesus, can I do this? Can I come and join you? Jesus says, yes, come. So off he goes. And then, of course, famously, and again, this is a way we love to think of Peter, he gets it splendidly right one moment, and another moment, his impetuous heart leads him astray. And soon he's looking at the winds and the waves, these things that are so familiar to him from all his professional life, and he knows how dangerous they are. And can I keep going? And he starts to sink. But even then he says the right thing to Jesus, Lord, save me. So even if we feel we're sinking, well, that's the way we can have faith in that situation. When we say, Lord, save me, because then we're still dialoguing with God. We still want to talk to God and we still want God to be involved. That's the faith that Job had when his circumstances completely crushed him. But he kept talking to God. Even when the things he said were about his pain and sorrow, at least he was sharing them with God. Lord, save me. Now, I've often heard preachers say, and I'm a bit sad about this really, that, Peter was not as really quite as full of faith as they would have been if they'd been in his sandals. Of course, he's looking around at his circumstances, at the wind and the waves, and he's taken his eyes off Jesus. And almost, we wouldn't have done that if we'd been in his situation. Would any of us have been brave enough, courageous enough to step out of that boat at the word of Jesus when he just says, come, when all we've got to go on is the look in his eye and the tone of his voice and the fact that he's given us a command? Well, Peter was. That's how he showed his faith, by coming when Jesus told him to. So our faith is always a learning journey with ups and downs. Yes, of course, faith is about looking to Jesus in our circumstances and not being controlled, not being centered on our circumstances, which will always change and be up and down like these winds and waves, but looking at Jesus. Of course that helps us, but sometimes it's his help that we need, by his grace, to have that faith. So let's not blame Peter for looking at the wind and the waves and having a momentary tremor, let's also think about his amazing courage in taking those steps onto the water in the first place. Could you have done that? And of course, when he cries out, "Lord, save me," Jesus responds immediately and reaches out and catches him. They climb into the boat, the wind dies down. It's as if where Jesus is, peace comes. That's why we need to keep looking at him, even when it's difficult to do so because our circumstances are pressing. I don't imagine that when Jesus walked on the water with the wind and the waves, that he was sort of climbing up all these high waves and then sliding down the other side. I imagine it, don't you, that as he walked, the wind and the waves around him were calmed because the Prince of Peace was there. He, the Lord of all, had the right to expect the universe to do his bidding. And that's why when he gets into the boat, the wind dies down immediately. And it's because his disciples see this that they gain new insight into who Jesus is. Is this why Jesus set this up? Why he sent them into those difficult circumstances on their own as they felt it? Why have we got to leave him behind? Why isn't he coming with us? How's he going to get here and join us? Did he send them ahead on their own to the other side? Because he wanted, through their struggles and their difficulties and their battling with the wind and the waves, to show them a little bit more of what it means to have the Prince of Peace with them. And therefore, in our circumstances, when we're looking at the wind and the waves, can we sometimes see what it means to have Jesus with us because of the difficulties that we're in without him? And then we see afresh what it means to have him with us when we reach out to him and he joins us in our boat. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you that you want us to be a people of confidence. You haven't called us to follow you because you want us to be a timid, fearful people. You say, fear not, don't be afraid. You say to us, come, when you call us to step out boldly. Please, Lord, in our own circumstances, amid loneliness and uncertainty and anxiety, help us to reach out to you. Amen. And just a couple of things to give notice of today. I'm actually going on holiday tomorrow, so I should be able to do a virtual church tomorrow morning, but then I don't think I'll be able to do one on Wednesday and Thursday morning. I'll try to be with you again for Friday. So it's our wedding anniversary, and we're going away to a cottage out in the country where we'll be on our own. Secondly, of course, we're now in the throes of preparing to open our churches for our usual service times this Sunday. We've taken a few days to try and battle our way through all the different guidance from the church and from the government. So please do think about joining us. 9:30 at St Michael's, 11 o'clock at St Andrew's. It will be different. There are a number of things we are not allowed to do and a number of other things that we're going to have to do, such as social distancing. So it will be different. And just to remind you, If you've been told you must shield, if you've been told you are vulnerable, please think very carefully and sensibly about coming. Until then, God bless you. See you tomorrow morning.